Welcome, Warriors, back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2. And I want to thank everybody for their feedback and comments and different subscriptions. We're at 130, so we're moving up as we go along, and I appreciate that because it shows me that some of the things we're talking about are really important and people are getting something out of it, and that's the main thing that I'm trying to do. So once again, thank you for all of that. And I listened to a lot of the comments. I'm going to do some upcoming ones talking about hair growth on retention. Also looking at things like how to accumulate money. This channel really is for the benefit, and not just talking about retention, but a benefit of all these type of things that people have that can better your life. And that's the thing that I'm going to talk about, is how can we actually go ahead and provide information that helps people better lives and do better. And that's kind of the thing that I'm kind of focusing on doing this. So I'm going to stop at the park for a second and do this, and then kind of just move on as we go along. So the thing is that as you're looking at this, it's important to realize that a lot of things make up success. One of the things that was asked of me in talking about how to deal with things when they go bad. And remember, the key, guys, and I'll do a separate video on this, but the key, guys, is a true measure of a warrior, true measure of a man, true measure of a woman is not really when things are well, things are going well. That's easy. It really is more of a case when things are in a challenge. And so when the warrior is challenged, that's when you find out the true nature of the warrior. In this case, the quote that comes into play is, the quote is, bend like the willow, but don't break like the oak. Now, where does that come from? That's an old saying. And the old saying is that, like a willow tree, whenever there's a storm, the willow tree tends to bend, as you see, right back and forth. So when the heavy storms come, the willow bends. You don't see them destroyed, they don't get affected by the storms, and bad things are happening. The oak tree will break. So when the oak trees break, it's because it's standing up to the storm to the point where it's not learning how to adapt and bend to the situation. And that's the key, guys, in looking at this, is to try to go ahead and bend to a situation. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're losing just because you're bending. And there's a wise type of part of this that you have to kind of look at. So as a warrior, you're not necessarily saying, okay, it's important to go ahead and just kind of give up and bend. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you have to learn to deal with the things around you. Not everything is going to go well for you in situations. Sometimes going to be times you're going to struggle. But it's during these periods of struggle that we really see the true measure of the warrior, of the person who is really going to be on top of winning the battle, the war in the long run. You may lose some battles. There are lots of examples of people and generals and wars and armies that have lost battles. But you don't lose the battle, right? Unless you're losing battles all the time, then you lose the war. You have to continue to fight. Losing a battle doesn't mean you're losing the war. And in fact, sometimes you have to retreat. There's going to be times that you're just not going to want to go ahead and get all your soldiers slaughtered, the people slaughtered. You're going to have to back up, and you're going to have to let things go and regroup. And that's okay. But in order to do that, you have to realize the whole axiom that you have to go ahead and be able to bend and move ahead and say, okay, I haven't won this battle, it's time to move on. But a lot of people, they end up fighting it to the point where they lose the next battle and the next battle. And then all of a sudden they just give up. And you don't want to do that. There's going to be times that things are not going to work out the way you want. But if you have that faith, and here's where the retention and the brahmacharya comes in. If you have that inner discipline, that strength to keep moving on no matter what, keep moving on, keep with your plan, eventually we'll succeed. We talked about the idea of Edison, a lot of these people who have struggled at times. A lot of times your greatest victory is right after your biggest defeat. When all of a sudden it seems hopeless, that's when your truth comes out. And that's believing in yourself, in my case, believing in the Lord, believing that things will turn out right. And as long as you keep on your pattern, your goal, your journey, then things will go better. And when I said, one of the reasons I'm doing this retention and this journey of Brahmacharya is to get closer to the Lord, because I believe that that will happen. Now, I have no scientific proof. I have no scientific proof of a lot of that stuff. But I can tell you what's happened to me, and that I've grown a lot because of this journey that I'm on. And once again, I used to be an angry person. I used to have a lot of anger issues, management issues, and I have gotten better because of this journey. A lot more self-control, a lot of ability to be able to handle things. Like, for instance, I used to get upset when people cut me off, driving like I'm driving right now, cut me off, I would get upset with them. I don't get as upset anymore, right? I handle it a lot differently than I used to. And the same thing with rejection, the same thing with anything you're doing. You handle that a lot better because you down deep know that what you have within yourself is an unbelievable source of power. And you don't need to deal with a lot of negative situations. And it comes back down to negativity, guys. If I have a glass sitting here with water in the middle, you could actually look at that as half full or half empty. If someone gives you a lemon, right? A lemon is usually termed the bad thing. You can make lemonade, make a positive out of it, okay? And all these old sayings, the reason why these old sayings are important. Like, for instance, don't cry over spilled milk. Well, let's look at an example of that. I had one time we had a chemistry teacher that brought us to the let me make a turn here, guys. We had a chemistry teacher that brought us in the lab to the sink and had a bottle of milk and spilt the milk, and had us all come over and look at it and say, okay, the milk is spilled. It went right down the drain. And he had said, you can't get that milk up anymore. The milk is gone. And that's what it is with things that don't go right, or failures that you have. That's gone, my friends. There's nothing you do about it. It's gone. The milk is down, went down the drain, it's gone. You cannot bring it up no matter what you do. And that's what happens in people. People are living in the past too much. You have to live in the present, and the future is going to take care of itself once you live in the present. But that's the idea. Living in the present is important, right? Not living in the past. Those things happen. We all make mistakes. We all learn from the mistakes. The same thing with journey. If you go on a relapse, forget it. Move on. Start a new thing. This is a lifelong type of thing you're doing, guys. And the thing about it is that it's going to help you bend more like the willow and not break like the oak. Whenever something happens, a storm happens, you're not going to break. You're going to bend and say, okay, they can deal with this, let's move on. If you relapse and something happens bad, well, you just go back and start again. If you have financial problems, you're going bankrupt, well, start again. There's many millionaires will go back and say, I've actually gone broke several times. But it's part of their understanding and mental framework that this is only part of a situation. This is not the end of the world. Those things will happen. I have to adapt to it, and we just move on and keep going, right? Like I said, several people have failed. Let's look at some of these things that we looked at, right? In baseball, when you look at people who are wonderful hitters and Hall of Fame hitters, they're hitting over 300, sometimes 400. We had, Ted Williams hit 400. But what is that saying, guys? That's saying that out of every 10 bats, 3 hits, that means you failed 7 times. But they're in the Hall of Fame, right? You look at the quarterbacks in the NFL, the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, they have more incompletions than they do touchdowns. More incompletions than completions, right? And so every time you throw the ball, one of 3 things is all positive. The other 2 are negatives, interceptions and incompletions, right? But they're in the Hall of Fame. So the bottom line is you're going to have to fail to succeed. And in business, a lot of people talk about the quick failures. Fail, 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 so you can learn how to succeed. And so the mindset, guys, is that Don't get down because you failed. You have to be strong mentally to say, okay, that's part of what happened here, but I'm moving on. I'm getting better. I'm going to do this better next time. That's why Edison could have failed 100,000 times and it wasn't discouraged. So we're talking about discouragement, guys. We're talking about breaking like the oak, getting upset, not staying on your purpose, and giving up. Bend like the willow. You're going to live through a lot of storms. You're going to keep going, and you're going to succeed beyond your wildest dreams because you're going to continue on your journey, and you're going to find the answer to solve the problem. It's all about solving problems, my friends. It's all about, as a warrior, dealing with the problem on the battlefield and saying, how do I solve this? I don't care if you're talking about being David to Goliath, which we'll talk about probably in another video. But the idea is that you need to be able to kind of figure out how to solve this problem, because it's really about the solved problem. And in order to do that, you have to have enough confidence to say, I'm not giving up. I'm going to bend in this situation, but I'm not going to break. And that's the key to it. Almost like a football team. Bend, but don't break. And the idea is that you want to continue to move on, and you want to continue to go through your goals. And so I think this is a very apt type of statement to put together, and an axiom to remember, that whenever you're challenged, it's really a key of that's when the true warrior comes out. It's all is good when you're winning and everything is great. You don't really get the true person. The true man comes out when you're challenged and you're in a battle. That's when you find out who people really are, is that when things are not going too well, how do they handle it? Do they go ahead and just kind of give up and put their head in the sand or in a hole, right? Or do they continue to fight and continue to battle? And warriors, you will always continue to battle. Never give up. I remember Winston Churchill said that in at a speech. He went to a speech. This was during the height of the World War II, being bombed. He said, never, 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 never give up. And that's the only words he said. He left the stage. So I'm going to tell you, warriors, never, never, never give up. Till next time, battle on.